Do not wait for the SBI Clerk or the SBI Junior Associate 2020 Prelims results. Why is this? It's because historically we have seen that SBI does not give much time between the declaration of the prelims result and the mains examination. So the time frame, it's usually 1 or 2 weeks only. So you will not be getting much time if you are waiting for the results. So try and keep preparing for the mains examination, and I hope that this video will help you boost your preparation strategy. Join my Telegram channel to stay connected with important PDFs, links and other information regarding bank exam preparation. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and share it with your friends so that everybody can get access to this information. And if you are new here, my mission is to empower you with the tools you need to get success in all kinds of competitive examinations. So if you want to join me in this journey, please click on the subscribe button, and also do not forget to click the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. Let us begin with this video. Hi, this is Shupriyo. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's very important that you do not waste any time and you prepare for the SBI Clerk Mains examination. You are not going to get enough time after the declaration of the prelims result to actually prepare. So make sure that you are not wasting any sort of time. And another thing I want to mention just before we begin is that all these clerical examinations, the IBPS clerk, the SBI clerk, etc., all these clerical examinations, the difficulty level is actually tending towards the PO examinations. So all the difficult questions that we earlier only used to see in the SBI PO Mains, now we are beginning to see these in the SBI Clerk Mains as well. So this is something that every aspirant who is targeting these examinations should understand, and you should be preparing not as if you are going to crack clerk exam, but you should be preparing that you are going to crack the PO examination. So this is very important, and I feel that a lot of people do not understand the importance of this. When you take your difficulty level to the PO level, then the clerical level becomes a little bit easier. And these days, all the questions that we earlier used to see in PO, for example, the number series questions, the missing number series questions that we saw in the 2019 SBI Clerk examination, those were directly lifted from the SBI PO Mains examination. So these are the kinds of things that you need to notice, and the successful aspirant is the person who will be noticing these things and implementing it in his or her strategy. So that's just something that I wanted to tell you before we begin. So the phase 2 of the mains examination, that's what we are going to dive into. And first you need to understand the exact pattern. So I hope that you already know about this, but I'll just go through it once again. So there are 4 sections. So you have the GA or the financial awareness section first, then the general English, the quantitative aptitude, the reasoning ability and computer aptitude. Now it's very important to note that all these sections, you already know that they have the sectional locking. So for example, for GA section, you will be attempting that section for 35 minutes. For the English, you are going to attempt in 35 minutes, Quant 45 minutes and reasoning 45 minutes. Now the sectional locking is still going to be there. So all these sections, you are not going to be able to navigate away from these sections when the section has begun. And we have seen in the past couple of years that the notification, whatever order they are actually mentioning, that's the order that the sections are appearing in. So the appearing of the sections, first section you will be getting GA, second English, third Quant, and then you are going to get reasoning. So usually this has been the pattern, and I hope that in 2020 SBI is not going to change it too much. So they are going to remain the same, and that is the order in which you are going to see the sections. So earlier what used to happen, sometimes we used to have the general awareness section in the middle of the paper, so you could get a breather. So a difficult section you would finish, and then the GA section would come, and you could actually just hold your breath and just get some reprieve. But nowadays, since they are giving the GA section at the top, so you will not be able to do that. And just understand that you have to have 100% focus for 2 hours and 40 minutes, and around 35 minutes you will be getting in GA. Now 50 questions will be there in GA. Now you don't really need 35 minutes for that. So in the 15 or 20 minutes it will be finished, and the next time that you have, the remaining time that you have, just calm yourself and just get ready for that 2 hour plus ordeal that you are going to face after the finishing of the GA section. So that's the kind of mentality that you need to have. Now all these sections, so GA section, there are going to be 50 marks. Then you have the English section which has 40 marks. So English has the lowest amount of marks. Just note this, that it's the section that has the lowest number of questions, the lowest number of marks as well, but the duration is the same as the GA. And Quant will be carrying 50 marks, and reasoning ability and computer aptitude, this section has the highest marks. So see, 60 marks is being dedicated to this section alone. And in the 2019 paper, and historically also, we have seen that this section is the most difficult section of the entire paper, and it comes at the end of the paper. So remember that you have to be focused when you are handling this section, and since it comes at the fag end of the paper, you must have that kind of a mentality that this difficult section, you are going to be ready for it. Don't take reasoning for granted. This is very, very important. And these days, what they have done, they have actually removed the sectional cutoffs, right? So you are going to have only the aggregate cutoffs. Now, if you see the cutoffs, there is also some kind of a trend towards an increasing trend of the cutoffs, but the cutoffs, you can see that mostly it is kind of like the PO paper, the cutoffs that we are getting, because the difficulty level has been adjusted quite a bit. So the clerical paper, it is no longer as easy a paper that it used to be. So in the past year 2019, the cutoff for the Haryana state was the highest. So we had 103.25 as the cutoff for the Haryana state, which was the highest all over India, and the lowest was for Assam, which was 85 marks only. Now there is a huge range, like 85 and 103.25. So to make matters a little bit simpler, let's calculate the median. So you don't have to calculate the median. I have already calculated the median marks. So the median marks, it has come out to be 97.125. So this is the median marks. Remember, I'm talking about the median, the middle number, not the mean. I'm not taking the average over here. It's the median. So if you have consideration towards the median, so this is the kind of number. If you get these amount of marks, you can clear the cutoff for most of the states. And usually we have seen that if you cross 100, so if you score 100 plus, then almost all of the state cutoffs you can clear. So that is what we can consider as our benchmark when we are just taking the strategy part of things. So if you have to score 100 plus marks, around 100, then you have to have around 50% marks, right? So you have a total marks of 200, remember. And another thing you have to note that in 2019, in that paper, each and every question, it carried same marks. This is very important. So no matter that we had the hard questions or easy questions, each question carried the same amount of marks. This is crucial because it means that if somebody had a very good ability to choose the easy questions, they would be so far ahead of a student who was wasting time in the hard questions to solve them. So choosing the questions is very, very important in this examination. And now, as we talked about the 100 marks, so if you need to get 100 marks, first thing that you need to ensure is that the general or financial awareness for you is quite strong, because this is a section that is not going to change too much. This is a section that's mostly on memorization and they cannot change up the questions too much. So this 50 marks, you are going to prepare very, very well. Ensure that you are very well prepared in that. And the next thing that you need is one of the strong sections. So now you have to decide whether you are good in English or Quant or reasoning. Now the logical thing for most people would be to choose the reasoning section, that they want to pick the GA and reasoning to become very, very strong in. But what the problem occurs is that in the reasoning section, the difficulty level is quite high, and it has been seen that most people, they were not going to be crossing 50% marks in the reasoning section because it takes a lot of time to read all the questions as well. But the advantage for you is that they are going to consider only the aggregate cutoff. So even if you get 0 in reasoning and you are selected, there's going to be no problem. I don't recommend it, of course, but this is just to tell you that you have to try and get these two sections very, very strong for you. This is the key in the SBI Clerk examination. You have to have a strong GA section and you have to have a good English and Quant. So you do not need to be extremely good in both these, but even if you are just above average, then you can get a lot of easy marks that you can score. So if you consider all these three sections, then these three sections can fetch you about 140 marks. That's the total marks that it can fetch you. And these three sections, if you make them very, very strong, then the reasoning ability, even if you get a little bit less amount of marks, then also it is okay. And I have seen that so many students, they will be wasting a lot of time in solving the difficult puzzles and the difficult arrangements. I know that these are very important for the reasoning paper, but if you are wasting your time, the time which you could invest in English, the time which you could invest in Quant, then it is not getting you the results that you want, right? So try and think about the paper in this way. These are the three sections that you have to have very, very strong. And the reasoning section, it is always going to be very, very hard. So if you just get around 10, 15 or 20 marks in this section, it will be okay for you. So this is the kind of thing that you have to approach. Most people, they become very fascinated with the reasoning and they keep on doing so many puzzles and so many difficult problems, but that will not yield you the results that you want. Because see, another thing is, in Quant section you have 50 questions, right? But here they are giving you 45 minutes, and in reasoning ability 50 questions, 45 minutes, but the marks are quite high. So in the reasoning section, the difficulty level is much harder than in the Quant section. So in Quant, if you have good grasp over the DIs, it becomes a lot easier. So let's move to the next section. So we are going to go into the sectional strategy now. So the first section, that is the general or the financial awareness section. Now this section, I cannot overstate the importance of this section, because as I told you, it will never ever change. You know what kind of questions you can expect over here. So in that 35 minutes that you are getting at the beginning of the paper, if you can score as much marks as possible, then it becomes very, very easier. Your entire paper is going to be boosted, because you will be feeling good that I have just attempted so many marks and now I have only 3 more sections to go. So try and excel in this section. Now for this, I always suggest students to go for daily general awareness preparation. So if you do it daily, it's going to be the most easiest to actually remember all of these stuffs. So my suggestion is, either you pick any one of these 3 sources. Okay, no need to pick all of them, just pick any one. So Bankers Adda or Affairs Cloud or GK Today, any one of these sections, any one of these websites, just pick, and from this website you just do the daily GA preparation. So note down the daily GA that you have. And a lot of students actually asked me how to prepare the GA notes. So if you are also interested in that, please write down in the comments below. I'm definitely thinking of preparing something like that. So if many of you want that, so I will be preparing that, so that it becomes a lot easier for you to prepare your notes and also revise it. And this is about the daily general awareness. And for the monthly, what you are going to do, for the monthly, take a source, not any one of these sources, but you have chosen for daily, take some other source. So for example, you can take the grade up source and just cross check between the questions that you had for the daily and the monthly. So if you take both of these things, so daily you are taking from these, and from monthly you are taking from grade up, and then you can have very efficient notes and you do not need to worry about missing anything. So that is how you are going to prepare your GA section. And very important is the past 3 months. So if you have your examination on the second week of August, so say at the end of the second week of August, then you have to have a very high amount of preparation for May, June and July. These 3 months current affairs must be very, very good for you. And also you have to prepare the first week of August. So that is how you are going to prepare. Take special care that the past 3 months you are covering very comprehensively, and then you go back up to 6 months. So up to the 6 months if you are preparing, that is enough. You don't need to go any more back than that. So 6 months of current affairs is going to be very, very fine for that. And just remember that 1 week before the exam also you need to prepare those current affairs, because some questions were asked which were quite recent, and this has been the trend in the recent examinations. And some very important things are the budget 2020. Now I have an entire video series, a playlist on budget, so you can go check it out. All the important budget numbers are very important for you to memorize, so make sure that you note all the important budget numbers and everything about the budget. Then you can also practice via MCQ quizzes. So on on YouTube you'll be finding lots of videos. You can also go check out my playlist that I have on the MCQs. So you can check out playlists of many other channels on YouTube as well, and you can practice the general awareness questions via MCQ format. This is very important. Practicing via the MCQ format, that is the best way in which you can recollect all this information. And there is also a very important need of reading the RBI specific news. Now, why is this? I'll just explain using the 2019 paper. So in 2019, they asked a question on the full form of FBA. Now, people were actually stumped as to what is this FBA and why SBI Clerk suddenly asked this question. So it refers to Financial Benchmark Administrator, and this FBA, why had they asked it? This was because in an RBI notification of July, they had actually mentioned FBA, and the people who were preparing for SBI or RBI and they had read that notification, they were benefited immensely because they could get to the right answer, but many people had to just miss that question. So this RBI specific news, it's very important that you note all of the RBI notifications. Now I have a video series, a playlist in which I have actually noted down the RBI news since December 2019. I will be updating it as we go forward. So it is actually aimed at the RBI grade B aspirants, but you can also just watch those videos and you can just filter the information. No need to go in depth as I have gone. And if you see any kind of abbreviations, then just make note of those abbreviations, because the RBI notifications, the questions can be framed from those notifications, and also from the recent financial news and all kinds of news items that we recently discussed, like economic centered news. So for example, in 2019 they also had a question on the DPCR. Now people were also confused about that. So it is the Digital Public Credit Repository. A lot of articles had come out stating about the PCR, and it was a very hot news at that point of time. So those finance related current affairs you also need to know. So these are the kinds of things that you need to focus on. And also the countries, capitals and currencies. So this is a standard of the SBI Clerk, and they will be asking lot of capital of countries or the currencies of countries. It is always asked. And the portfolio of each union minister, this is also vitally important. So all the union ministries that we have, who is heading those ministries, the Minister of State in independent charge, all of those things you need to just note very, very well. And then we have the days, the tiger reserves, the national parks or sanctuaries. So a few questions come from this, but I will be honest with you that this section, this is actually static, and if you can memorize it, then it's good. But I don't feel that there is a lot of bang for buck by memorizing all of those things, because you have to memorize a lot of things for just scoring 2 or 3 marks. So if you want to neglect it, it's okay, but the other things you need to be very strong in. And in my MCQ series as well, whatever I have, I always try to pick and choose and give you the best questions which have the highest likelihood of being asked in the examination. So that's what I will be continuing to do. And the next thing is the reports, the summits and the PSU news. So any PSU news is very important. Any new thing that a state has done, those things are very important to note. And the reports, so for example, we had in 2019 the question on WESP. So who is preparing that? The World Economic Situation and Prospects Report. So the organization that was preparing that. And also about the summits. So if there is a summit that is held in India, or it is recently held somewhere, the G7 summit or the other kinds of summits that we used to have, the themes of those summits are also very important. So let's move to the next section. Coming to the sectional strategy for English. Now note that in the last year, both the shifts that we had, English was one of the easiest sections to attempt. And if you have just good concepts of how you can actually tackle the grammar and the reading comprehension, then it becomes very, very easy for you. So English, try and focus and get as much marks in it as possible. And I will also be starting a series on English. So if you want that, please let me know. And regarding the SBI Clerk paper, so what we saw was that there was a lot of focus on the idioms and the vocab. So just common idioms were asked, not something out of the ordinary. So usually things like throw down the gauntlet, the hill of beans, sleep on it, those kinds of easy things were asked. So you can just Google and you can find all the idioms that you want to study. It's quite simple. And regarding the vocabulary, so regarding the vocabulary, I have already told you about the app, the Volt vocabulary app that that you have. So many of you have got some great results with that. But there is another thing that I want to tell you, that if you want to just improve your vocabulary, you can do something. Just in Google, write down Google word quiz. Just write down Google word quiz and just hit enter. Then you will be getting a kind of quiz that has been designed by Google itself, and it is a very interesting quiz. So you have the easy mode and you also have the hard mode, the difficult mode, and it's a never ending series of vocabulary questions. It's quite fun. Even I do it sometimes, and I really love practicing from that. So you can improve your vocab in that manner. And now you have to actually take your pick of the 3 RCs that will be given. Now usually you will be seeing at least 3 RCs, if not more. So all the reading comprehensions that you see, you can just have a policy that try and solve the easy questions in each and every RC. So each and every RC, they are going to have some questions which are easy, or not all of the questions are going to be easy. Some of them will have a lot of subjective meanings that they will be asking, so just ignore those. But there are always easy questions in those individual RCs. So your task is to improve your reading speed so that you can actually just tackle the reading comprehension. And as I told you, not all questions need to be answered, but if you can attempt all the 3 RCs, you are going to get a lot of edge, and you will be just getting a lot of marks from the reading comprehension. And of course you have the stop method. So this is a method that I have already talked about a lot. So you have to read about the scope, the tone, the organization and the purpose of each and every paragraph that you are reading. And always remember that when you are attempting the reading comprehension, the first thing you do is you read the questions. Read the question first, then you will be getting an idea about what is the topic on which the RC has been given, and it becomes very easy to solve the RC. And then you also have questions which are the fill in the blanks questions, but these are not the easy types that you see in the prelims examination. So they might be giving you 2 word pairs and 3 sentences in which all the sentences will be using these same word pairs to have logical meanings. So these word pairs that you are going to get in 3 sentences, you have to fit in. So these are the kinds of compound problems that you see in mains, and that is how they actually make it a little bit difficult. But the fill in the blanks is quite straightforward, so you will be able to handle that no problem. And also the synonyms and antonyms. So in the clerical papers, you will be seeing a lot of synonyms, antonyms, and sometimes they will be giving you one word in the RC itself. So that word will be highlighted, and then you will have to just choose the synonym or the antonym of that word. So that is something that is sometimes asked. And they also had a different type of question like the adjective defining the type of person. So a sentence, you had to just see that sentence and understand the sentence's tone, and after analyzing the tone, you had to actually say whether the what kind of adjective you could use to actually describe the person. So is that person stubborn? Is that person just angry? So these kinds of things. So you had to just interpret the actual sentence and you had to find the answer. And of course the error detection, this is something that you see always. So error detections were always there. Thus the thing was that you had to read a lot and you had to just attack the questions in that manner. So that is all about the English section. Now for Quant, one of the most important things for mains, we know that you have to prepare DIs. So it is fully reliant on DI preparation. 4 or 5 minimum you are going to get. So they might even give more, but at least 5 questions on DIs you are going to get easily. So it is very important that you also note the types of DIs that have been asked in the PO exams. So make sure that you read those. So try and always note these graphs. So the candlestick chart, the Heikin-Ashi, the box plot, and of course the missing DI. This is something that was a lot in focus in the 2019 clerk paper, the missing DI. So when you have a table that is given to you and some data is missing, I would suggest that when you are confident that this question is actually doable, then just write down that same table on your rough sheet, just recreate it and just write it down. It saves a lot of time in the end when you are actually looking at that filled in table and you are answering. So though it can a little bit take time in the beginning to actually make that in your rough sheet, but if you just make it, then it becomes easy to solve those 5 questions. So try and do that if it is feasible, and if you can feel that this question is doable. And of course, these are the common types of graphs. So the tabular graph, the line graph, the bar chart, the pie chart, the mixed kind of graphs, and the caselet DIs. So these kinds of questions, what they do in the mains exam, they sometimes combine two kinds of graphs. So we saw that a bar graph was actually just combined with a pie chart. So these kinds of things sometimes happen, and what happens is you have to just interpret the both of those charts, and you have to write down, and you have to answer the questions. So sometimes think about the DIs in a way in which you can just reduce the calculation as much as possible. It's quite possible. So some types of questions you have to think that what is the pattern that I'm going to follow, and I will be talking you through all these things in a DI specific video. It would be much better to cover. So if you want that, please let me know, and I will definitely consider it. And there is also the caselet DI. So these DIs, usually I would say that these are very complicated. It's not quite easy. You can find one or two easy ones, but mostly these are the things that you have to ignore or you have to do at the end of your paper. And the missing number series, of course, very, very important. So they will not be giving you the easier number series, but the missing number series, and also some kind of data sufficiency problems which will be mixed with the missing number or the number series. So in the PO exams, like you had 1, 2, 3, and these three number series were given to you, and then the question was that the quantity you found in 1, is it greater than 3, is it greater than 2, like that. So they make the problem a little bit more complicated and a little bit more lengthy, but the principle, the basic principle remains the same. And the next thing is that when you are practicing, you have to practice the problem difficulty prediction. So what do I mean by this? This is a technique that will actually help you to just find out which are the questions you can choose. So if you want to just discover which of the questions in the mains you are going to choose, then you have to know how you can predict the difficulty of such questions. So in your practice sessions, what you will be doing, for example, if you have 10 questions that you need to practice, you just use a timer. Say you have put 10 minutes on the timer. In the first minute of the timer, go through those 10 questions, and then in the side of your paper, just write down your judgment. Is it easy? Is it doable? Is it easy but it is called calculative? So these kinds of judgments, just write down your judgments, and then you solve the paper, the questions, and finally what you will be doing, you will be seeing that your prediction is right or wrong. So if you do it like this, you will have that ability to predict the difficulty of questions. This is very, very important. If you can just predict the difficulty of a question, that will help you so much in your mains examination, because by just looking at the problem, you will be understanding whether I should be doing this, if this will be taking a lot of time, or is it something that I just have to ignore. So this is something that is a little bit advanced, but if you do this, then it will help you a lot in the long run. And of course the miscellaneous inequality, yes, it was also there. So these kinds of questions, they will be giving quantity 1, quantity 2, quantity 3 sometimes, and then a relation is asked that these quantities, which is the greater or lesser or something like that, and each of that quantity, they are separate problems. So just solving a lot of those things, it will fetch you just single marks or whatever mark it is given to you. So like that, they actually make the paper a bit more lengthy and complicated. So your reading speed, it also is tested in the DI paper, in the quant paper. And the easier sub questions, as usual, as I told, that all these questions, some of the questions can be very, very easy, but they are actually hidden in a tough looking problem. So find out the easy questions. There are a lot of easy questions in quant in every paper. So you have to just find them out and you have to attempt them. So let us move to the next section. So the sectional strategy for reasoning ability and computer aptitude. Now this is one of the toughest sections out there. Now in 2019, what happened in the first shift, the reasoning paper, it was actually very, very tough. But in the second shift, what they did, they actually made the reasoning paper a little easier, and quant was tough. So usually this is what they do, either reasoning or quant, they are going to make very, very tough, and most of the times it is the responsibility of reasoning to be very, very tough. And so there is an over reliance on puzzles and arrangements. This is something that you cannot escape, and if you have to get better in reasoning, you have to get better at puzzles, and you have to get better at arrangements. So not only circular arrangements, but any kind of arrangements. It can be square, it can be various kinds of blocks. So try and find out these types of questions and practice them as much as possible. And there are a lot of long-winded questions. So as I told you, reading speed, this is very, very crucial. If you have a high speed of reading, then you can get through these questions very, very fast. They will be asking you these compound problems. with a twist. So for example, in a input output problem, they might say that okay, there are arrangements that you have to make. So as per the first letter of the word, the arrangement is happening, but then again when the word is arranged, you are also just doing it a sorting, and you are arranging it from A to Z. And then there are also numbers involved, and the addition of numbers, sometimes odd or even numbers. So letters, words, numbers, they're going to mix all of those things and they are going to present to you. So whenever you are solving any machine input output, just make this thing in your mind clearly that you have to read the question very well. You have to see the pattern, and if it looks too easy, then you might be missing something, because they will be usually making it very difficult. And the next thing is the compound coding, decoding, and the syllogisms. So syllogisms were something that did not used to come in the main section for a long time, but now they have reappeared. It's good news for us because it's a very easy kind of thing, but of course they are not going to give you very easy ones. They are going to give you a little bit complicated ones. But the compound coding, decoding, this is definitely something that you can do. So they will be saying that these things stand for some other kinds of articles. So numbers and letters, they are going to mix, and then they are going to present it to you. And of course, critical reasoning and blood relations, these questions especially are very long-winded, and there is a lot of thing that you have to read, and then you have to solve the answers. So critical reasoning, you just have to find out the conclusion, as I told you, and you have to just find out what is the crux of the exact argument, exact assumption that they are making, and it's quite doable. But you have to improve your reading speed so that you can solve this question. And finally, we come to computer aptitude. Now, a lot of people, actually the people who are giving it for the first time, they might be reading Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. But please stop reading all of those things. Those things are not going to be asked to you. Computer aptitude means algorithms, it means computer science kinds of things. So for example, the binary numbers, the hexadecimal numbers, those kinds of questions you can expect. So many students, they will say that computer, nothing came from computer, but from computer they have asked something. They can ask algorithms, they can ask some kind of logic driven questions. So computer aptitude you cannot prepare separately. It has to be something that you have to prepare along with your reasoning preparation. So don't worry too much about that. Just make sure that you know the conversions of decimal, hexadecimal. Those are the only things that you need to learn. Rest of the things are all logical and algorithm driven. So then finally coming to the language test, the local language test. So if you have finally cleared everything and you are selected in mains, then you have to go for the local language test. But this is only if you do not have the 10th or 12th standard mark sheet or certificate proving you studied the local language. So if you cannot give this certificate, then they will be taking this local language test, and some of you might be going for it. So how is it conducted? So it is basically a written test mostly. They will be having separate sections for writing, for reading, for speaking, and it actually varies a lot across the circles. So I cannot give you a concrete arrangement of what is actually asked, because different circles are following different ways in which they are actually conducting the test. But you can rest assured that these three things are actually just asked to you. And the questions, what are the questions? So they will be asking you translations. So from English to that local language, they might ask you to translate. They will be giving you small essays, grammar questions, synonym, antonym, and just simple questions which are very easy if you are conversant in that local language. So some students are actually taking this lightly. Do not take this lightly. I want you to just practice with regional newspapers. So if you are somebody who cannot give these certificates, then just go ahead and practice regional newspaper. Go read it just every 2 days or just alternate days. Just go ahead and read that regional newspaper, interpret it, and I am sure that you can ace this language test without any kind of issues. So finally we come to the best books to buy. So the best books, this will actually be something that is not really required. Books, I do not feel add a lot of value, except if you are weak in concepts. If you are weak in concepts, then no matter what you are studying for, you need books. So if you really need books, go for Quantitative Aptitude by R.S. Agarwal. This is something that is very important. And DI, Data Interpretation by Arun Sharma. So this book, this is a very good book, but it is a very high level book as well. So it's a CAT level book, but if you do the problems that have been given in this book, I am pretty sure that you can solve the DI that is asked in bank exam. exams very easily. So try and get this if you don't have it already. Reasoning by R.S. Agarwal and Analytical Reasoning by M.K. Pandey. So these two kinds of books are also very important for the reasoning section. And the English Grammar by Renan Martin. This is a school level book, but this is a book that should always be on your shelf, and just try and see if you can get hold of this book. It will help you to grab a hold of the concepts. And also the Disha English topic wise solved book. This is also something that you can use. So all the book links I'll be providing in the description and in the comment, so you can go ahead and you can buy if you want. So finally, coming to the final advice for all of the things that we discussed. So the most important thing is how you are analyzing mocks rather than greater number of mocks. So it is more important that you analyze mocks rather than you give a lot of mocks. So people will be saying that I am attempting 2 mocks, 3 mocks per day. So it's something that they're bragging about. But I want you to understand that when you are attempting mocks, you are only applying what you already know. So through a mock, you are not going to learn things. Through a mock, you're just applying all the methods that you know. And it's very important to understand where you went wrong. So even a question that you have done correctly, go and see the solution. See how they have approached it. And in my quant specific video that I just did a few days ago, so that quant specific video, I just showed you that what you should actually think about. You should think about elegant solutions to each and every problem that come to you. And that is why I think that analysis of mocks is very important. And you can also write down the scores that you are getting in a mock, in each and every mock, in an Excel sheet or on paper, and you can just see that which are the scores that you are lacking in, and also the question types that you are missing a lot. And the cognitive endurance is also very important. So what do I mean by this? This is that you have to sit down in front of a computer for 2 hours 40 minutes to finish off this paper. It's very important that you get in the habit of having 3-hour long work sessions. So have your sessions longer and just see that your mind is focused when you are studying, because cognitive endurance will take you a long way. You have to have that mental agility, because even at the fag end of the paper, when you see a tough problem, your brain should be agile enough to actually tackle it. So make sure that you have that. And there is also something that you must note, that there is a wait list. So any candidates, there is a 50% wait list. So each and every state, 50% of the number of vacancies they are going to wait list, and they are going to keep for 1 year. Usually it is up to 1 year, and what happens is quarterly SBI is going to just select those candidates, and if somebody who has been selected has not joined, then they call the person from the wait list and they place them accordingly. So if you have missed the exam by just very less amount of marks, 0.1, 0.2 like that, then you have a lot of high chances of getting through. And there is also the need for exam debriefs. So each and every exam that you do, make sure that you write down what went wrong, how you were feeling, what kind of questions you attempted, how you felt at that day. So these things will actually help a lot when you need to understand what had gone wrong earlier. And of course, the final thing, that you have to have self-belief. You must understand that, okay, I am somebody who deserves this job. I am somebody who deserves to be in SBI. If you do not have that self-belief, then nobody can help you. Nobody will be giving you a chance if you yourself do not give yourself a chance that I am somebody who is willing, who is worth all these things. And finally, mental and physical health. Take care of your health. Just try and get some exercise as much as possible. Do not just make yourself sick by studying for the exam, because in life there are a lot of other things than this exam. So make sure that you stay healthy and you stay motivated, and I hope that you learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. If you enjoyed this session, please give it a like, and please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. Take care and push towards your goals. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.